The funeral home was hushed, a sanctuary of collective mourning where social niceties crumbled under the weight of sorrow. Soft murmurs and muffled cries floated like ghosts through the room, a symphony of heartache that settled over the gathered congregation. Sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows, painted vivid mosaics on the polished wooden floors, ephemeral reminders of beauty in a world suddenly bereft of one of its kindest souls. At the room's heart lay the singular coffin of Danny Cole, its polished wood gleaming somberly in the half-light. A vibrant life so cruelly abbreviated by a sudden accident, Danny had left behind a void that felt like an eternal chasm. His widow, Sarah, stood pale and composed, each breath a silent testament to her dwindling reserves of strength. Her heart pounded with fury and disbelief. Her mind reeled in chaotic cycles of grief and unfounded guilt. She searched vainly for comfort in the proceedings, finding none, adrift in an ocean of memories. Cradled against her chest, their 2-year-old son Liam, twisted with restless energy, a living extension of Danny's spirit. His eyes, wide and innocent, belied the turmoil that swirled around him. Every few moments, his small finger would extend, pointing unwaveringly at the coffin. "Dada," he babbled softly, a mixture of curiosity and the irresistible pull of a universe dimly understood. To him, death was an unfathomable concept, a transient state similar to nap times and play. But for Sarah, each innocent gesture was an echo of loss that resonated within, as if Liam's outstretched fingers sought to pierce the fragile barriers guarding her heart. The funeral service began, a sonorous tide of hymns and whispers, punctuated by the occasional sniff of suppressed sobs. Friends and family stood in small clusters, their faces etched with condolences and shared histories, each person a piece of a larger puzzle that had suddenly lost its centerpiece. Reverent, they came one by one to offer their solemn goodbyes, to touch the edge of the coffin as if seeking warmth from the wood, a final physical connection to a friend, a brother, a husband stolen away too soon. Reverend Marston, an older gentleman whose voice exuded a warmth cultivated over decades of shepherding souls through life's most testing times, approached the podium. His spectacles perched precariously on the bridge of his nose, and his Bible, worn and familiar, was cradled in gnarled hands. His eyes, crinkled at the corners, bespoke of witnessing countless farewells, yet they softened with genuine affection for the man mourned that day. "Danny was a beacon," Reverend Marston began, his voice embracing the room. "A light in the lives of many, whose kindness and dedication to helping others have left indelible marks on our hearts. He built not with bricks and mortar, but with love and compassion. Let us find strength in his memory and solace in the legacy he leaves behind, a legacy of care and community." As Reverend Marston's words flowed, Sarah closed her eyes, letting the memories unfurl like a cherished film reel across her mind's eye. Her hand tightened on Liam's back, a silent vow, a grounding connection. Danny, with his lopsided grin and unwavering optimism, had always been the dreamer, the one who saw potential where others saw problems. It was that spirit that was channeled into his project, a community shelter meant to offer hope and refuge to the displaced. Yet now, with his passing, it seemed all those dreams might fade away with him. Once more, Liam's fingers brushed against her cheek, dragging Sarah back from the precipice of despair. "Dada," he repeated, this time with a note of insistence that shattered the oppressive silence. A lump formed in Sarah's throat, a ball of emotion threatening to spill over. The room shifted subtly, the communal center of gravity tilting as eyes turned towards the youthful voice, expecting a connection that the young Spencer's mind could not yet fathom. Liam, innocent, unscarred by grief or loss, continued his conversation with the absent figure, unaware of the ripples he was causing in the hearts around him. "Sarah," a gentle voice murmured from her right. Turning, she met the eyes of Jenny, Danny's sister, her closest confidant amidst the sea of acquaintances. Jenny's eyes were knowing and kind, her presence the soothing balm on the raw wound of Sarah's soul. "You know he never believed in endings, don't you?" Jenny whispered, leaning closer, familiar in a way only family can manage. "Danny always saw new beginnings, even in places where others feared to tread. Liam is his beginning." Jenny's words, simple yet profound, pierced through Sarah's haze of grief. They struck a chord deep within her, a reminder that though Danny was gone, his spirit lived on in the most tangible and poignant form possible. Liam was not just their child. He was a vessel of Danny's hopes, his values, and his legacy, a calling she could not refuse. As the service drew to a close, Sarah felt the tides within her slowly shift. Bit by bit, her grief, though unrelenting, receded, replaced by something unfamiliar, a stirring, flickering resilience. A fleeting thought seeded itself. If there was a path to navigate this pain, it lay in the journey of seeing Danny's dreams realized through the eyes of their son and the unfinished project that he held dear. With newfound clarity, Sarah kissed the top of Liam's head, inhaling his scent, a grounding reminder of the life still woven into hers. And as they walked hand in hand out of the funeral home into the waning afternoon sun, the universe seemed to breathe in tandem with her, an unspoken understanding that this was not an end, but commencement of a new chapter in their shared journey, begun with a finger pointed toward legacy and love, beyond the span of mortality. The days that followed the funeral were drowned in an oppressive silence that sat thick upon the Cole household like an unwelcome guest. Shadows lengthened early, drawn out by the slow crawl of evening, as Sarah navigated through each day in an autopilot haze. The thrum of life around her continued unabated, streets bustling with cars and people lost in their own worlds of urgency. Yet within her quiet home, time faltered. Dishes remained unwashed, framed photographs, tiny windows into happier times, layered with dust, while card upon card of condolence stacked like fallen soldiers on her kitchen table, unopened and read only for their sentiment. Liam, untouched by the concept of mourning, became her anchor, unknowingly grounding her within the routine of his innocence. Most days were spent following his gleeful antics, his high-pitched laughter a precious cure to the weight in her chest. The echo of his mirth pealed through the confines of their home, a stark contrast to her silent heartache, proof that life, in its intrinsic stubbornness, continued to unfurl. Then, it was on a morning cloaked in the grays of early spring, when the world seemed to hesitantly suggest renewal, that everything shifted. The chill of the kitchen tiles seeped through her socks as she sipped her coffee, the bitterness untouched by its sugar lightning. Liam was capering about the living room, drawn to the fireplace mantel where photographs stood like sentinels of a life paused mid-sentence. "Daddy," he chirped, pulling one picture closer to him, his determination unyielding despite his size. The photograph was under the harsh glow of morning light, Danny in midsummer, windswept and alive against the blue sea, holding Liam aloft as if he could teach him flight. The impact was visceral, crashing over Sarah with the force of an unseen wave. Her hand trembled as it reached for the photograph, her touch gentle, as if afraid time itself would dissolve the image. Memory, bittersweet but vibrant, flared in the confines of her mind. The scent of salt-laden breezes, the sound of Danny's easy laughter floating back, cutting through the din of sorrow that had since smothered her spirit. "Dada," Liam insisted, his eyes bright with the clarity only the unquestioning love of a child can provide. And as Sarah met those eyes, the bitter tang of her guilt loosened incrementally, giving room for something more profound. She saw Danny's laughter crinkled at the corners of Liam's eyes and understood, in a way she hadn't yet allowed herself, that Danny was still here, in the child that bound them and in the dream he had nurtured. Later that evening, after dusk surrendered the world to night's embrace, Sarah sat at the dining room table, Danny's notes spread before her like a sacred text. Each page bore scrawled diagrams and ideas, the evolution of thought evident through the ink-smeared pages. This was not just paper. It was his vision, his voice scrawled between lines that spoke of philanthropy and humanity's better nature. The project had been the culmination of Danny's hopes, a community haven designed to provide warmth and safety to those who had been outcast by circumstance or misfortune. Danny had been relentless in his pursuit of justice and compassion, seeking to imbue the world with the kindness he dispensed so freely. As she studied the documents, piecing together his dream's architecture, the tight knot of mourning within her chest unfurled slightly. A faint yet discernible warmth suffused her, coaxing the corners of her lips into a fragile smile. In her hands lay the blueprint of redemption, hers and Danny's. If she could bring the shelter to fruition, she'd preserve his legacy. She'd find her own purpose anew amidst the fragments of their shared life. The days that followed were a whirlwind as Sarah threw herself into the endeavor with a fervor she'd thought long extinguished. Connections were rekindled. Danny's friends and her community offered support, each person touched by the same spirit of generosity that had moved Danny to action. Amid late nights fueled by coffee and Liam's laughter, domestic chaos now a symphony beneath her burgeoning dedication, Sarah found herself forging something new and resilient from the ashes of grief. She was learning to redefine family with each blueprint revised, rebuilding more than just brick and mortar. It was the weaving of lives into a mosaic of hope. The challenges were numerous, ranging from budget constraints to slow-moving permits, each obstacle a test of her resolve. But with each hurdle crossed, Sarah found she grew stronger, the solid ground of Danny's legacy firm beneath her feet. Liam, oblivious to the logistical complexities but intuitively aware of the emotional shift, became her shadow during meetings and site visits, a near constant reminder of the love that was shaping her path. It wasn't long before Sarah's labor bore fruit. On a soft twilight evening, she stood before the nascent structure of what would soon be the community shelter. The unfinished building basked in the ethereal glow of fading sunlight, a framework of dreams and labor both, a testament of what was once impossible. Her heart clutched tightly at the sight, for though her hands trembled with the enormity of the task, they were also filled with promise. Liam stood beside her, watching with wide-eyed wonder as shadows danced across exposed steel beams in budding hope. Sarah knelt beside her son, holding him close, the gentle wind tousling his curls with the same caress she envisioned Danny's spirit giving. She breathed deeply, inhaling not the weight of loss, but the essence of beginnings, of triumph over despair. "Yes, my love," Sarah murmured, voice keening with emotion that crested like waves at high tide. "Daddy certainly did dream big. And because of him, we will help others dream too." It was in that space of contemplation and burgeoning light that Sarah finally understood. The shelter was more than Danny's legacy. It was their shared journey toward rediscovery and resilience, an unabashed proclamation that even within the darkest shadows, hope and purpose could unfurl fiercely toward an awaiting sky. The steel beams of the nascent shelter reached toward the sky like the outstretched fingers of the hopeful. Standing alongside this monument to human resilience, Sarah felt, for the first time since Danny's passing, that she no longer existed solely in the shadow of her grief. The air was a cool embrace as twilight draped itself over the burgeoning community refuge, a sacred space carved from loss and lit by the promise of renewal. Sarah inhaled deeply, savoring the blend of earth and anticipation that suffused the air. Beside her, Liam was a bundle of vibrant energy, his infectious laughter bubbling up like an irrepressible spring. He clung to her hand, his wide eyes absorbing the structure before him as though he could see his father's handiwork interwoven within the fabric of its creation. Days had transformed into nights and back again in a cyclonic dance of meetings, calls, and documentations. But now, as construction neared completion, the texture of engaging with the project had subtly changed. She wasn't merely fulfilling Danny's dream. She was embedding her essence into its foundations. Each decision, every color chosen, every nook designed, carried both of their signatures, cementing a future built with the fibers of love and resolve. As she surveyed the fruits of these efforts, Thomas, Danny's closest friend and collaborator, approached with a quiet reverence. His presence was a comfort, representing continuity between the life she'd known and the path teetering into view. "They're saying it will be finished in a few weeks," Thomas began, his voice a gentle rumble like distant thunder, filled with quiet optimism. "Danny, he'd be so proud of what you've accomplished, Sarah." She smiled, a bittersweet curve to her lips. "It was never just me, Thomas. This place, it's everyone's. And it's as much his spirit guiding us, as it is ours working tirelessly. I feel him here, you know?" Thomas nodded, his gaze sweeping over the skeletal structure. "I do. We all do. It's as if his presence never left us, just kind of shifted," he added, his words floating into the evening air, merging with the gentle symphony of nature reclaiming the day. As the last traces of sunlight bled into a darkening canvas, Sarah felt a pull toward one of the nearly finished rooms. She gestured for Thomas to follow, and together, with Liam in tow, they navigated the unfamiliar space. Light fixtures hung bare and expectant, while walls embraced the scent of fresh paint. Sarah paused by the threshold, the room aglow with the faint light reflecting from the last embers of the sun. "Welcome to the heart of the shelter," Sarah announced softly, as Liam ventured into the room, his tiny footsteps sounding out a melody of new beginnings. "This will be the common room, where we'll hold events and community meals. A place where stories can be shared, where laughter and even tears can echo as part of healing." Her voice, though unwaveringly strong, was serenaded by an underlying current of emotion. Thomas took in the room, his eyes alight with approval. "Perfect." Danny adored the idea of community meals. Said there was no greater justice than sharing a meal, food, as a common language. "Yes," Sarah affirmed, her gaze tracing the lines of the room, envisioning its future filled with people, laughter, and the camaraderie of shared lives. He was right. Justice is palpable here, not just an ideal, but a living, breathing entity. The dual essence of loss and laughter was not lost on Sarah. Every challenge had fortified her resolve, each victory paving the way for a future ripe with possibility. But the transformation was personal too. She had learned strength beyond strength, resilience flowing steady as a river, forging paths unknown. Even love, layered with memory, was a tool of reconstruction, a beacon guiding her steadfastly through the murk of despair to shores of newfound purpose. As they returned to the center of the structure, construction teams were reviewing blueprints, their hardworking bodies punctuating the silhouette of promise. Sarah squeezed Liam's hand, reflecting on the children that would come to know this place as a safe haven, much like she saw it, a living tribute to hope, redemption, and resilience. In that moment, a figure approached, silhouetted by dusk. It was Adam, the lead architect, his expression bearing the practiced reserve of someone who balanced dreams against reality every day. "We've made great progress," he acknowledged, his words a buoyant affirmation of their collective labor. Sarah nodded, gratitude unspooling within her like an unraveling thread. "I can't thank you all enough. In these walls, we've immortalized Danny's spirit. We'll bring light to so many lives, offer redemption, show resilience as reality, not just an ideal." The wordless understanding between them was rich and full, a shared purpose realized through time and mutual loss. A pause filled the air, held tenderly in the hands of unspoken acknowledgments, taking root even in the unlikeliest of hearts. That evening ended with Liam's breath settling into the gentle rhythm of sleep, a melody risen from solace dwelling in the aftermath of storms. Sarah watched him, once more contemplating the transformation of their lives. Each heartbeat echoed a promise, to Danny, to herself, and to all those she had yet to meet. She was rebuilding a world, brick by brick, heart by heart, a testament not just to one man's vision, but to the indomitable spark of the human soul capable of crafting havens out of heartache, new beginnings from the ashes of ends. When the sun rose the next morning over the burgeoning sanctuary, Sarah stood beneath the dawn's golden embrace, her spirit more vibrant and unburdened. It was the dawn of not just a new day, but a burgeoning dream realized. She lingered there, a silhouette framed against the burgeoning brilliance of morning, silhouetted by the structure of dreams, completed hearts beating as one, a mosaic of love enduring beyond the reach of mortality.